international relations expert and CEO of Elnet. Good morning.
Good morning.
We're seeing a rise in support for far-right parties in a number of EU countries. Might this be a critical moment for the EU?
Well, the rise is essentially in France and in Germany, where the National Rally and the Alternative for Germany had very good results compared to other parties. So these are the two countries where the far right had major gains, but globally at the European level, there was not a significant rise of the hard right. What is true, however, is that the right is dominant in the European Parliament. It goes to show also after the recent elections in Holland that many voters in Europe want tougher policies on immigration. That was one of the main messages of the National Rally in France. And of course, the main consequence, as far as France is concerned, is that given the magnitude of the defeat of his party in the European elections, President Macron decided last night to dissolve Parliament and go for a snap election.
Now, what factors do you think contributed to these significant gains of far-right parties in these recent European Parliament elections?
So, as I said, immigration was a major concern. This is really what explains the rise of the right-wing parties. And I think that when it comes to countries, the major countries such as France and Germany, the feeling that the existing parties, whether from the center-right or the center-left, did not address the main concerns of voters when it comes to immigration, to the economy. And of course, now if the National Rally in France, after the snap election, manages to win this election and to form a majority, it will have to prove its ability to govern and to deliver on its promises to voters.
And how might these gains impact the overall political landscape of the EU?
So regarding the overall political landscape of the EU, we need to understand that the major issues today are, for example, the war in Ukraine, whether or not countries support continuing to provide aid to Ukraine. And I think that here, many far-right parties have a very ambiguous position on the issue of Russia and Ukraine. I think that the overall result of the elections to the European Parliament do indicate that there is still a strong majority in Europe to continue and support Ukraine. And I think that this sends an important message, especially since there's still a lot of uncertainty regarding the outcome of the elections in America. And if after the November elections in the US, a re-elected Trump decides to no longer support Ukraine, of course, Europe needs to send a message to Russia that it will provide Ukraine with weapons and funding, no matter how long it takes, and that might entail Putin to reach an agreement with Ukraine and with the European Union.
And more specifically, what can this possibly mean for the EU's relations with Israel?
So regarding the relation with Israel, of course, there are, first of all, 27 member states in the EU. So there's no such a thing, as a matter of fact, of a EU foreign policy and a common position on foreign affairs, including on Israel. I think that today Israel has many allies in Europe, especially the governments of Germany, of Sweden, of Italy, and now of Holland. I think that if the president of the European Commission, the outgoing president of the European Commission, is re-elected, Ursula von der Leyen, that would be good news for Israel, because she's been very consistent in supporting Israel's right to defend itself since October 7. Of course, it is to be hoped, not only for Israel, but for the EU, that the current High Commissioner for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, has had many outrageous statements against Israel, and many member states, in fact, have rebuked him, saying that he does not represent the EU as a whole. So it is to be hoped, as I said, that he will be replaced by a more competent and balanced candidate.
Now, how significant is the Gaza war, in your opinion, as an issue for the EU?
So the war in Gaza was the main issue, for example, of the far left in France. That was the issue of the far left. They didn't talk about really the economy domestic matters in France. They used this conflict as the focus of their campaign, trying to turn the issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as an identity issue in French politics. And that didn't pay. The far left party in France, the LFI party, as I said, turned the conflict with Hamas into the main campaign issue, and they did very poorly in those elections. So this goes to show that this strategy of the far left to cater to the Muslim voters simply didn't deliver.
Dr. Emmanuel Navon, thank you very much.